hope you're enjoying the last two sessions, day one. So right now we've got Danny from Lantana Games open sourcing your tech stack and how he saved $5,000 and still made a game. I mean, that's important, saving money for sure. So we're excited to have you, Danny. Again, you're going to have the Three Timers Club robe. That's going to be awesome. All right.
I
So
hope that comes with like a button or something that I can
a
put
little
on
button,
my shirt.
ITB Three Timers. Jay, you're gonna have to start making some pins that say ITB X amount of timers. But yeah.
That'd be
All right, let's
great.
do this. Let's do this. Take it away.
Let's do this. So, hi everybody. I am Danny Silvers of Lantana Games, and this is Open Sourcing Your Tech Stack. How I saved $43,000 and still made a game. So, a little bit of an introduction about me. I am the founder of Lantana Games in 2009. And the Boston Festival of Indie Games in 2012. I've been an indie game developer for 15 going on 16 years. I have multiple launches on Steam, including 2 games in my Mondrian series, Abstraction and Beauty and Plastic Reality. Also helped contribute on Gunhilder from Rat Dog Games, and have a few other consultant jobs under my belt. I have much experience in Unity and like 3ds Max and Photoshop and such, but I began learning Godot and Blender in earnest at the end of 2023 for my next project. And I'm currently sitting at 1,800, 1,900, going on 2,000 hours in Godot, and over 300 hours in Blender. I wrote this slide like a month ago, and it's been nothing but continuous work in there since then. So add another 50 to 100 hours, 150 in both since then. But you can too. So the first question is, what is open source? What is this talk all about? Well, open source is software that is made freely available and editable by the end user. It is a decentralized model that encourages collaboration. So it's not just people, working on the 80th floor of a massive office building, only, working on proprietary tech that nobody else gets to get a hold of. No, it's stuff that the source code is published on places like GitHub, where you can download it and modify it yourself, fork it into your own versions if you want to, or contribute bug fixes and features back to the main repository. It's completely up to you what you want to do with it. Source code and documentation are editable by the community, with the intention being to encourage community-made fixes, new features, and even forks, like I just said. So that's the beauty of open source, is it's not just people working on proprietary tech. It is community-based collaboration. So there are 2 types of open source licenses. There's copyleft and there's permissive, and we're going to go through both. Within each category, there are multiple licenses. There are pretty distinct differences between them. Some are used more than others, and like especially in games, some aren't used at all. But it's good to know what your expectations are with each one. So starting with the general public license, or the GPL. This is suitable for commercial, patent, and private use. So the nice thing about open source is, just because it's free doesn't mean that what you make with it has to be free, depending on the license, of course. So what that means is you can make something in something that is open source, and then you can put it on Steam. You can charge money for it. So the GPL preserves the license notifications for modified source code. So basically that means you can't change the license in it. Software that uses GPL code in its own code base must also be distributed under the GPL. So yeah, you can't change the license for it. You can't get rid of the license notification. If you use GPL code, your code is GPL. There's also the AGPL, which closes a loophole in GPL about distributing software over a closed network. There's a little bit of a controversy back in like 20, 30 some years ago, where There was some GPL licensed software that was getting distributed over an intranet, and they thought that that was a way around the license of the AGPL was created to close that loophole. You then have the LGPL, or Lesser General Public License. This preserves copyright and license notifications for GPL and AGPL. It allows for smaller projects or pieces of bigger projects to be distributed outside of the parent project. So you can take chunks of what you're working on and distribute them separately under the LGPL. And modified source code does not have to be distributed under the same terms as the parent project. So if you, say, are working on a new feature for an LGPL project, and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to distribute this on its own under a different license. You can suddenly make it regular GPL or MIT or Apache. You can change the license on it. There's the Eclipse Foundation license. This is more common for business software. This one isn't really used in games very much. It allows for additions of different kinds of licenses, including EPL, non-EPL, and even proprietary. So you can mix and match code and features and fixes from other licenses. Non-EPL editions must exist as independent modules and plugins. So they basically can't be directly integrated. Modifications to code base must fall under the EPL. So yeah, if you're going to be changing, the direct code rather than adding to it, that has to be under EPL. And then generally used for coding languages, database visualizations, command line shells, all the highly technical stuff. It's not for you. Don't worry about it. You then have the Apache license, and you might be like, wait a minute, I thought the Apache logo was a feather. They literally changed it on Monday. I had to go and update the presentation for this. But the Apache license is software must display the license and copyright notifications in the code or the distributed software. That's pretty standard fare. Derivative or modified works or big projects built with the Apache license code can have their own license terms and are not required to provide source code. Which is a really interesting part of it, that you can just package an Apache licensed software together and not distribute the source code. It does allow you to patent works created under the Apache license. So if you want to protect your work, this is the one to go for. And a significant portion of the internet runs under Apache. Think WordPress. Or even any security backend, really. It's over 50%, probably close to 90% of the internet runs under Apache. You then have the MIT license. This is the most common one in game development. It is short and sweet, and it is very popular. It allows anyone to do whatever they want with the code. You can change it, you can fork it, you can modify it, you can delete it. It's just completely moldable. The original copyright and license notification must be presented in the resulting source code or software. Standard fare in games tends to be putting the license notification either in the manual or at the end of the credits, or just somewhere easily accessible. There's no liability for authors. So if you are writing something under the MIT license, you can pretty much just write. And there's no explicit patent grant, but probably not an issue either. I couldn't find specific examples of people trying to patent anything created under the MIT license, but there's nothing that stops you from doing so. Then there is the BSD license. The Berkeley source distribution allows larger projects or licensed works to be distributed under different licenses, which is strange. But that's how it goes. It is similar to the MIT license overall. So you must retain the original license info, copyright notice, and disclaimers. This one has a bit of a controversial history. because as time has gone on, they've been trimming it down and down and down. The original version required advertisements of your products to include a specific notice, and like some advertisements were even banned if so like you were not allowed to market your projects if they were built under the BSD license. That got updated in the 3 clause, which got rid of that restriction, and then there's the 2 clause and the BSD, and it's convoluted. And then finally, there's the permissive or the unlicensed. This is just completely public domain stuff. There's no restrictions, no copyright, no licensing, anything. It just exists. Have fun. So in comparing the options, because yeah, there's a lot of options, and that was a lot of information to take in. Obviously on one side you've got proprietary software, and that has a lot of problems, particularly in the case of this talk, the money. So for Adobe, for instance, you're looking at $960 a year per seat, not including the cancellation fees that they've been hitting people with lately. Microsoft, like Teams, Office 365, etc., that's $150 a year a seat. Autodesk, Max Maya, Mudbox, that's $2,010 a year per seat, just for Maya. And so, yeah, the software development's getting very, very expensive. You're looking at issues like always online requirements so that your registration can be verified. You've got AI nowadays spying on what you're doing in some creative softwares, as well as Office softwares or even operating systems. File formats, proprietary formats are unreadable by other software, or sometimes even previous versions of the same software. Those get locked out so that you are forced to upgrade. And then software can reach end of life and it's no longer supported. And again, you're forced to upgrade and spend more money and more time and more headaches, and it's just more caveats to worry about. Meanwhile, you've got the blessings of open source. There are 0 subscription costs, there are 0 upfront costs, and there are 0 costs, period. There's a reason it's called FOSS, free and open source software. And free, however, does not necessarily mean free from money. Like some of this stuff can cost money, and you can create products that do cost money, but free means like freedom of expression. The community, and I'll be going more into that later on in the talk, but the open source community is kind of libertarian when it comes to making stuff. 99% of open source software works offline, no accounts, no backend servers, no AI spying on your work. You do still need to download it, obviously, because we are outside the era of physical distribution. So you're not going to get this stuff on disk or CD, unfortunately. The software tends to use open source file formats as well for universal compatibility and collaboration. This also means more efficient file storage and compression, because the community is always working on the file formats to make them better and smaller and faster for everyone. And the best part about these formats is they're often plain text and human readable. They don't tend to be encrypted, and they work across all the different softwares, which again, I'll be going into pretty soon. And there's no real end of life for any of it. Even old versions tend to get updated by the community and kept alive for well past their expiration dates. Of course, open source is not without a few caveats. There's no dedicated tech support number that you can call when you have trouble. That tends to just be decentralized across Reddit, Discord, Slack. You're mostly going to be looking at the community for help rather than the development team on a lot of these projects. Sometimes if something is broken, you may have to fix it yourself, in which case do the community a favor and upload your fix back to GitHub. There's no guarantees of when updates will occur. For instance, Godot 4.5 just got released a couple days ago, and 4.4 was 6 or 7 months before that. So these things take time in open source, and you have to just be patient because the results are worth it. Some research may be needed if a fork of the software is a better fit for you than the regular version. Sometimes there are community-made versions of an open source piece of software that like do something differently or simpler or in a better way than what you're used to. Like you may be using an open source engine that like somebody's made a C++ version of, for instance, and you know C++, but you don't know the proprietary language of the engine. So you say, okay, I'm going to use the C++ version. You can do that. So really, it comes down to the internet's rule number one: have a brain. Think for yourself. The weird thing about open source is your hand will not be held by any big corporation telling you how things should be done. You will have to figure out how the things are done. And it takes some homework and it takes some thinking, but it's worth it in the end. You have a lot of tools at your disposal. So don't be afraid to click through, look up tutorials. Even like Humble Bundle, for instance, tends to have huge educational bundles on Blender, Godot, Krita, and like all this stuff. So go ahead, spend a few bucks and pick up some tutorials on them. There's LinkedIn Learning, there's YouTube, there's everything. There's so many resources at your disposal for learning whatever interests you. And then if a tool happens to be missing or a piece of software entirely is missing, think about building it yourself and giving back to the community. But open source is just for coders, right? Well, incorrect. There are free and open source alternatives to every piece of software. I got really red all of a sudden. Sorry about that. To every piece of software across every conceivable specialty. Today, we're mostly going to be exploring my own FOSS tech stack. But you can see from this tree, that's just a few examples of what's out there, from Linux to Krita to GIMP to WordPress, MongoDB, GitHub, regular Git, Drupal, doesn't matter. There's a lot of open source out there. So I encourage you to explore and see what's on offer. These programs can be found in all kinds of places, including Steam, as well as itch and GitHub and their own websites. But what's right for you? Yes. FOSS covers every imaginable sector. What you use mostly depends on what your output will be. For commercial or free projects that are not forks of other FOSS projects, any license is generally fine. So, we went through the licenses a little bit ago. If you need to download, if you need to download something open source and you're not sure what the liabilities are going to be for you using that, usually it just comes down to make sure the license information is somewhere accessible in your README, in the credits, in the manual, wherever you're going to put it. For forks of open source projects, keep in mind what the licensing terms state about where and how it can be distributed. Generally, the licenses are pretty easy to understand. When in doubt, get a lawyer. And so at this point, I'd like to give everybody 5 seconds to find a piece of paper and start taking some notes, because this is where this talk is actually going to get fun. So number one, in exploring the open source alternatives to what's out there, we've got, the productivity suites. You've got your Office 365, Word, Excel, WordPerfect, etc. These are very quickly and efficiently replaced by LibreOffice, OpenOffice, OnlyOffice, or Collabora Online. And there's like 4 or 5 other choices as well, but I've only got so much space per slide. They're all multiple solid alternatives to premium productivity suites. They offer identical features to the big names, whether you're editing documents, building spreadsheets, managing presentations. And don't even get me started on DocX format. ODT and the equivalents are just so much better for everybody, and they're readable across the board. So I highly recommend everybody just go get LibreOffice. It's just there, and it works on everything: Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, you name it. Reasons to use LibreOffice: obviously, it's free, it's secure, clean interface, lightweight, multi-platform, and it's got every single equivalent application that Office 365 has. It's a no-brainer. Getting into the art side of things, or more my side of things, stop turning red. So getting into the art side, obviously on the proprietary side, you've got Photoshop, you've got Corel Paint, etc. This is for raster at this point, and then this can all be replaced with GIMP, Pinta, or Krita. Your expected savings per year are $269 to $480 per seat annually, depending on the software. So GIMP is the GNU image manipulation program, solid, well-rounded graphics suite, which just got updated to version 3.0 after a 20-year wait. Like I said, sometimes you have to be patient for these updates in open source. They could take a while. Pinta and Krita are beautiful digital painting and photo suites, perfect for anyone with real artistic chops. On the vector side of things, in the proprietary, you've got Illustrator, CorelDRAW. These can be replaced with Inkscape or Graphite. And again, you're looking at saving between $269 and $480 per seat annually. Inkscape has become a go-to for artists across the web, has a very active and dedicated community. Then with Graphite, this is a newer product. It's still in alpha, but it does node-based vector editing, and it's basically positioning itself as the game engine of vector editors, and it looks really, really cool. So if you like doing node-based stuff, be it blueprints or like DaVinci Resolve special effects, for instance, definitely go give Graphite a try. On the 3D side of things, you've got 3ds Max, you've got Maya, you've got ZBrush, Mudbox, all those. And then those can be replaced with Blender, or if you have more specialized voxel-y needs, Blockbench. So you're looking at saving between $480 and $2,010 per seat annually on these softwares. And like, I think it's maybe the hottest of takes to say that Blender is a no-brainer when it comes to 3D. It is an all-in-one go-to for 3D anything, be it modeling, sculpting, animating, rendering, you name it, Blender can do it. It can even do a little bit of 2D. It's got video editing. It's got painting. There's plugins as well. There's a vast plugin ecosystem for Blender. It's really worth checking out. Look into YouTube Paint if you haven't already. Blockbench, meanwhile, is a low poly voxelized modeling suite. This is what Mojang uses on Minecraft, actually. Both are unquestionable steals for the cost, free, with modeling, sculpting, animation, UV editing, shading, and more built in. So you have some really, really solid options when it comes to 3D. My personal reasons for using Blender: obviously, it's free, it's stable. I learned Maya in college, and I can tell you that the tool sets in Blender are equivalent to Maya. Exports to numerous formats: GLTF, FBX, OBJ, you name it, whatever you need. It does have FBX compatibility, so like if you're using Unreal and or Unity, really whatever, you're not going to have any trouble bringing things back and forth. And there's plenty of like automated pipelines from Blender back to whatever game engine you're using. It has a built-in animation and video editor. It's great for low poly and high poly, whether you're modeling or sculpting. It can do it all. On the animation side, if you're doing 2D animation, on proprietary, you've got Adobe Animate, Toon Boom Harmony, etc. My personal preference there is Toon Boom. And I'm saying that because I've got friends at Toon Boom. Hi guys. But these can be replaced. There's a lot of open source 2D animation options. You've got Tahoma 2D, OpenToons, Glaxnimate, or Synfig. You're looking at saving between $204 and $276 per seat, sometimes annually. At least on the proprietary side, you still have options that are one-time payments rather than subscriptions. But you do have your pick of the litter when it comes to open source 2D animation suites. Blender and Krita also offer 2D animation tools. Try everything out. Like I said, you're going to have to do your homework here and figure out which one is best for you. You're not always going to be able to just pick one software and start using it. I definitely recommend giving everything a week before you lock in on what you think is the tool for you. On the music side, you've got Adobe Audition, Pro Tools, FL Studio, etc. And then that can all be replaced with Audacity, Tenacity, Bosca or BXFR. You're looking at saving between $275 to $599 per seat, sometimes annually. Audacity offers a simple audio editing interface. It's great for sound effects and voiceover and even music recording, like live music recording. Tenacity is a recent Audacity fork, but there are some feature differences between them. Like Tenacity is missing some looping functions for some reason, but they're also adding some of their own touches into it, so worth looking into. LMMS and Bosca are powerful DAWs for MIDI mixing, and BXFR is great for making retro sound effects. Camera. So my personal preference for using Audacity or Tenacity, obviously they're free, they're stable, it's easy and super fast multi-track audio editing. You do have to be a little bit careful because like your changes to the audio are permanent. So you may end up with more tracks than you personally like, but you'll find ways to bake them down. And both of them can be rebuilt from the source code, which is actually still necessary for Tenacity to restore missing features, like, for some reason, track volume. Open source is finicky like that sometimes. This may not apply to everybody, but on the writing side of things, which I enjoy writing, particularly for narrative and dialogue, you might be using tools like Celtx, Writer Duet, or Arc Studio Pro. Back in the day, I used Celtx for a couple different projects. And then recent updates to it have like put it all online and like major up subscription costs and everything. But there happen to be some really, really good open source replacements for them with Trilby and Manuscript. I have been using Trilby recently, and I absolutely adore it. So you're looking at saving between $15 to $99 per seat annually. Manuscript is very early days, but it already has tools to make branching narrative easier, so if you're making a game that has branching dialogue, you might want to look into Manuscript for actually writing it out. I see a lot of, say, YouTube tutorials where the developers are just writing the branching narrative right in the engine. This will save you some headaches to plot your plot ahead of time. Trilby has a a feature set that is nearly identical to Celtics, to old Celtics. Plus, it has a big database of character names and some other nice bonuses. And so both are hard to beat for the price. Free. My camera is old. Reasons to use Trilby, just from my own personal perspective. It is free. It is stable. It has an identical feature set to old Celtics. Like I said, it has a big list of character names, so you can just double click a name and add a new character if you haven't thought of one yet. And then it is compatible with multiple file formats, including the Celtics file format, so you can easily transfer over. And now everyone's favorite topic, game engines. So on the one side, you've got like Unity, Unreal, GameMaker, etc. And on the open source side, you have Godot, you have GDevelop, Cocos Creator, Monogame. There's a few others as well. They're all worth looking into. Your expected savings here are generally $60 to $2,400 per seat annually. Obviously, every single, even the proprietary game engines are a little bit different. Like Unreal is, you don't owe Epic any money until you make $1 million annually off any given game, which is still an incredible deal, but it's not quite open source. It is close, but it's yeah. And then Unity, if you make over $100,000 a year, you have to, upgrade your license with them, etc. So, from my personal standpoint, I picked Godot, and I do not regret it whatsoever. Godot is an unbelievably powerful, stable, and I would say it's an easier to use FOSS alternative to Unity specifically. The power under the hood is not quite Unreal's, but you're still going to get a really good looking game out of it. GDevelop is similar to Godot, but uses visual scripting. And interestingly, if you upgrade your license for GDevelop, they have AI features that you can use. Cocos is primarily built for 2D games, but it is compatible with many different programming languages. Oh, did something, sorry. Reasons to use Godot from my personal standpoint. Obviously, it is free and it is stable. 4.5 just came out the other day, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. GDScript, in my personal experience, can be learned in about a month. It really doesn't take long to pick up, even if you have never programmed anything in your life. There are some tips and tricks that are worth learning, and there's some really good tutorials out there on those tips and tricks. So it's worth picking up. It's excellent for 2D and, in my opinion, for 3D. Does a lot. Features every imaginable node you would ever need. So nodes are basically Godot's equivalent of game objects, and it comes with a whole bunch, and there are others that are available via plugins and GD extensions. You can make your own if you want to. They do all sorts of things, from container classes to mesh objects to lights to sprites, armature bones, everything. Like it has you covered. Exported games. Well, so the engine itself runs on PC, mobile, and web. There's versions of Godot that are available for Android and iOS, if you can believe it. And it builds for PC, mobile, and web. And if you have contracts in place, it is a lot less difficult to get console exporters for Godot than a lot of people would have you believe. Just if you have the things in place, you can get the console exporters. They just don't distribute them as publicly as like Unity does. You can easily build plugins to fit any need that you have in the game that the engine doesn't come with, but I'm telling you, the engine comes with more than enough for any developer. And like I said, just updated to 4.5 with a ton of new features included. So if you've never used Godot before, it's available everywhere. It's even on Steam, and it's free. Just go check it out. It's worth it. When it comes to programming IDEs, you've got stuff like Visual Studio, IntelliJ, PyCharm, etc. Um, Open source IDEs are a little bit different. So you've got things like code blocks, Notepad++, which isn't specifically an IDE, and Kdevelop. You're looking at saving around $250 to $1,200 per seat annually. I generally use Notepad++ because of its extensive support for different file formats. But code blocks and Kdevelop are closer in functionality to proprietary IDEs, depending on your game language. They can do more with, basically the IDE equivalent of spell checking than Notepad++ can. But in my personal opinion, I picked Notepad++ because Lizard. It's a no-brainer. Back into the business side, in terms of video conferencing, you've got, for keeping up with your team, you've got Teams and Zoom and Discord, etc. This is a lesser known one, but I like Video Ninja. You can save between $72 and $219 per seat annually. So Video Ninja is a very simple and lightweight and stylish open source web plugin of all things. And you just upload this to your FTP on a separate subdirectory on your website, and you can create a virtual meeting room instantly, or even a podcast room, or there's so much you can do with it. It runs on a peer-to-peer access instead of accessing a central web host. And there's no AI, there's no ads, there's no data harvesting or anything like that. So check out Video Ninja if you're in the need, if you have the need for a conferencing solution. And then, you've got your operating systems. You've got Windows and Mac OS on one side, and then you've got Linux on the other side, which, has thousands of different distributions. Some of the more mainstream ones are Ubuntu, Mint, Manjaro. For anyone who's feeling particularly crazy and wants to build Linux from source, there's Gentoo. But you're looking at saving between $150 and $3,000 per seat annually. Well, sometimes annually, sometimes just per computer. Windows and Mac OS are becoming increasingly more expensive, intrusive, and inefficient, while most major game engines now not only work in Linux, but export to Linux, including Unity. Unreal actually works in Linux, which was kind of surprising to me, and Godot, obviously, and more. Finding the distro that's right for you is the challenge, because there's so many distributions of Linux. So you might want to just install a virtual machine and play around and see what it feels like. So the reasons to use Linux are numerous, but my number one reason, I would say, is the Steam Deck. If you are not optimizing your games for Steam Deck right now, you are missing out on a sizable portion of the market. The estimates are that it will have shipped 8 million units by the end of the year, which is not huge, but it's not zero. New and similar devices are coming out as well, such as the Lenovo Legion Go S, and the ROG Xbox Ally was just announced to be coming out October 16th. And the nice thing about the Steam Deck is that of all these handheld options, it is the most affordable and the most accessible way for testing your games on these upcoming devices, because it is arguably the weakest of them. So if you can hit 800p 60 frames per second on Steam Deck, your game will run on the other ones that are coming out. There's no question about it. And I can attest that even doing game development itself on Steam Deck is not terrible in desktop mode. In actual big picture mode on Steam Deck, it can be kind of a nightmare sometimes. So that was just, the basic list of software that I tend to use in my development. And if we're assuming like a team of 4, a general normal band-sized indie group, you're looking at saving close to $44,000 a year in software by going completely open source. So if budget is tight, you might want to look into making some changes. Now, there's risks and rewards for teams of all sizes when it comes to switching over. So when it comes to benefits for solo developers, obviously there's no annual fees, and just, for like a couple extra features, you eliminate accounting before net income. So you're not spending money just to make money. And theoretically, this is games. Let's face it, your game can sell 10 copies after you spend 3 years on it. Titles can quickly become moddable, especially depending on the engine you use. Like modding Godot games, for instance, is pretty easy. So always worth looking into for increasing longevity. It is very lightweight software, perfect for development on a laptop or even a tablet or phone. You can be coding on the bus. You keep 100% of profits upon publishing, regardless of how successful your game is. And that's assuming you're self-publishing, obviously. There's never any always online checks, no subscription fees, no cancellation fees, no AI stealing your work while you're working on it. It's great. Benefits for teams. If for instance, you're running a game jam at your studio and you have a couple other people register an email address in order to use an engine, you're not going to suddenly have sales reps contacting you and saying you need to upgrade your licenses because you had a weekend party. How dare you? You have instant marketing potential by switching over to open source. The adoption of open source frameworks is becoming a big marketing point for game studios that have traditionally used mainstream engines. You keep 100% of your profits upon publishing, again, assuming self-publishing, regardless of how successful your game is. No need for pools of licenses. New team members can get instantly set up. You don't have to worry about any miscommunication or servers being down. There's no risk of anyone running off with a license and just basically stealing thousands of dollars from you in the process. And there's no need to juggle online organization settings just to make sure that you're keeping up with requirements. In terms of risks, like I said earlier, there's no tech support. Marketing can be difficult in a sea of other solos, but that's no different from usual. And you can have some potential difficulties in landing publisher deals, but that's generally because the publisher may not have anybody on hand who actually knows the technology. And there may be some other licensing or security issues to worry about that come up with any reason. Risk for teams, all the previous risks apply. There can be some lack of clarity on console support. Like I said, it is generally supported, but quietly. As long as you have the contracts in place, you're fine. And the publisher may not have experts on hand for supporting you. Encryption on your games is generally enough to keep the script kiddies out. It is not enough for keeping the experts out. But if all you're really concerned about is bored people, then you're fine. Follow the licensing terms carefully. Slipping up can be a dangerous PR fumble. For instance, Sonic Team forgot to add the Godot license to the Sonic Colors remaster a few years ago, and they got called out for it publicly and had to put out a patch. Just in terms of just quickly some news in open source, there are a bunch of games that are using open source now. Slay the Spire 2 was announced to be using Godot. Battlefield 6 is actually shipping with a version of Godot as the level editor. That is really, really cool. Axiom Verge, Celeste, and Stardew Valley were all built with Monogame, which is a fork of XNA from back in the day, if anybody remembers that, on the Xbox 360 days. And then Geometry Dash, huge game, was made in Cocos. Governments are even switching over to open source. You've got Denmark banning Microsoft products. GIMP is included as pre-approved software for the state of Pennsylvania Health Department. You've got the California Department of Technology just this year launched a brand new open source portal as a big resource for developers and the public and government to come together and talk open source and share projects and contribute to code bases. The European Union is discussing a full switch over to Linux, and Ghidra, a very popular framework for reverse engineering software, is open source and was actually developed by the NSA. So there's a lot of moves being made there. How can you participate in open source? Well, number one, you can make the switch. Find the FOSS alternative that will make the biggest, most positive impact on your team or project. Follow said projects on GitHub, Steam, Itch, X, wherever they are. Take time to learn the software and cancel your old subscriptions when you're ready. Definitely donate if you're able to. There's a lot of different foundations that manage the FOSS software. So like the Python Foundation, for instance, currently brings in about $350,000 a month. The Blender Foundation, $261-ish thousand a month. And the Godot Foundation is about $42,000 a month. Other apps have their own individual donation pages, such as Inkscape, Blockbench, Manuscript. A lot of them are just set up as a PayPal link because these projects are generally managed by one or two people. So it just, helps you pay for their coffee and such. Donations help to support the project in different ways. Sometimes it's just for hosting, and sometimes it's to actually cover salaries. So if you are using a project and you're enjoying it and it's making your life better, go ahead and give them $1. It's worth it. Join communities. FOSS communities are a great place to share new projects, get technical help, network with fellow users. The communities tend to be on GitHub, Reddit, Discord, Slack, or forums, and keep an eye out for local events and meetups. They tend to be all over the place. Give back, obviously donate as mentioned, help to improve documentation. If you're not good at coding, this is a great way to contribute back to any project is by even just finding spelling errors. Submit bug reports, create and share plugins, write or record tutorials. There's never enough help on YouTube. And contribute directly to the source code if you have a feature that you think would be a big improvement for everybody. I have a couple minutes for the FAQ, and then I will open it to other questions in the chat. So the most important, am I required to contribute to the source code? And the answer is not unless you want to. There is no expectation for you to contribute to source code if you're using a FOSS application, as they work offline and do not require an account login. There's no way to enforce users to do anything just to use the software. There are no quid pro quos. Can I be blocked from using a FOSS app? No, this goes against the open source definition. The Open Source Initiative has a broad, non-discriminatory philosophy. Giving everyone freedom means giving evil people freedom too. And as controversial as that may sound, basically it just means you can't be locked out. And if you could be locked out, it wouldn't be open source. Is free software the same as open source? Yes, with an explanation. Free in the case of Open Source Initiative or the Free Software Foundation is treated as a matter of liberty, not price. This does not necessarily mean that if you release a piece of proprietary software for free, like a free-to-play game, that it is immediately open source. Again, this all depends on the license and what you distribute with your eventual game. Is Creative Commons the same as open source? No, mainly due to issues with patents. Discussions have been had, but it is possible to patent something released as open source, which is contrary to the ideas of CC0 or public domain, which completely waives patent rights. This would set some bad precedents and weaken patent infringement defenses for software released under CC0. So no, they are not the same, because sometimes people, despite releasing their software as open source, still want some level of legal protection on it. And do I really need to cancel all my subscriptions? No, I'm just trying to save you a buck. Game development is at a major crossroads right now. AAA games are flopping. Solo indies are winning Game of the Year. You can vibe code Space Invaders in a tweet, and everyone's got to pay rent. But regardless of your size or skill level, please do the research and see if there's something out there that would be a better fit for your budget and teams. For further reading on open source, you can check out the Open Source Initiative at opensource.org. There's also the GNU Foundation has a whole thing on what is free software. And for various guides on different open source software, you can check out opensource.guide. Thank you for listening. Like I said, I have been Danny Silvers. This is my third time on Indie Game Business, and I'm always happy to be here. You find out more about me at lantanagames.com, twitter.com/lantanagames, or Shades of Silver for my personal one. And visit a shop page, buy a game or a t-shirt, and support what I'm doing.
That's awesome, Danny. All right. So how many people, let's just do a little poll here. How many people are convinced to just get rid of whatever program they're using and switch to Godot right now, right in the middle of their project? Or do you want to do it afterwards? He's raising his hand.
Despite the fact that I already have, I will switch to Godot from Godot. I'm very happy to
now switch from Godot to Godot. Already did it right during this whole thing. Everyone switched to open source everything. You know, it's funny because I was talking to my work and I just like while we were doing this, I'm like, I messaged and I said, you can take me off my Adobe subscription because I haven't used it in a while. But it brought that to surface. Yeah. Well, let's bring this up right here. The Incredible Hook. I'm a teacher with ideas for video games, but I don't have any programming experience. This is similar to my middle and high school students. What's the best way to bring a game to life? Start very, 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 very small.
Very small. The beautiful thing about Godot is there are some great GDScript tutorials out there. Check out Kubel and Tutemic, Stay at Home Dev, Games from Scratch. There's a whole bunch of really, really great YouTube channels, Jackie Codes. Great YouTube channels that do tutorials on Godot and GDScript. Like I said, it took me a month to learn, and I had never really done programming outside of visual scripting before. And by the end of that month, I was off to the races, and I haven't stopped coding in GDScript since then.
There's also that interactive GDScript coding that's online.
Yeah, GD Quest.
GD Quest. Do GD Quest. I was having fun doing that.
It's so good. It's all so good. And if you happen to have a GodotCon coming to your area, I went to GodotCon Boston back in May. I had the time of my life. Like I didn't even go to any talks. I was just networking with people, like singing the praises of Godot and GDScript with everybody from the foundation to other developers to YouTubers to just random people. Like it was beautiful. It is an absolutely beautiful time. So yeah, come to Godot Boston next year, or host a Godot group in your area if you have to. The community is great. They're just great.
Yeah. And they're super helpful, like on their Discords and stuff.
Yeah.
People will help you, or you can just talk directly to people from there, which is really cool. Yeah. All right. We got a couple questions. If you don't mind, we'll do this first one here. What do you think about working in a mixed environment, like one team member using Photoshop, the other one using GIMP, etc.? Any common pitfalls, and any solutions?
The only pitfall to watch out for is file format. I'm never, particular about like what anybody I'm working with is, using. I'm like, look, you use whatever you're most comfortable with using, as long as I can read it on my end and they can read what I'm working on their end, and we can bring it into the game engine to make it a part of the game, then it's all good. In terms of budget, like if you're not paying for it and they're paying for it, be my guest. If you're happy to pay for it, then okay, cool. But if you're broke and they're broke, just like try to get everyone on the same page and using the same things generally. But like I said, there's a ton of open source alternatives to everything out there. So just use, what you're comfortable with, as long as everybody can see what everybody else is working on.
That's good. That's good. All right. Another question. And also we got time. Well, it looks like there's some comments there. Another question. Any FOSS recommendations for collaborative work outside of code, like documents? Oh, that was probably asked before you went over that stuff.
Yeah.
Before you went over those. But if you want to reiterate.
LibreOffice, OpenOffice, Collabora Online. Yeah. It's all out there. If you just like do a quick search for open source office software, it's all going to come up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's your let's talk about something different. What's your favorite game right now?
Well, I'm playing through Hollow Knight. Absolutely adore it. Played a little
Hollow
bit of
Knight or Silk
Cinnabon.
Song? Silk Song or Hollow Knight?
First Hollow Knight. Have Silk
Okay.
Song. Waiting on Silk Song until I beat Hollow Knight, because gotta be proper. But I did pick up Silk Song day one. Prior to that, played a bit of Cinnabon. I've played a lot of Sea of Thieves. Helldivers. Ooh, the Heretic and Hexen upgrade from a month ago. That was so welcome, because I grew up on those games. So, I already owned them on Steam, so I got the free update with that. I was like, oh my God, look at this. That was awesome. I picked up the new Shantae as well. I love that series. I can't wait for that. These days I am primarily like indie. I don't remember when's the last time I actually bought a AAA game. It was probably Sea of Thieves, but there is that temptation to pick up Battlefield 6 just so I can start making Godot tutorials tailored to Battlefield 6 players, which is like sort of an opportunity there, isn't there?
There's sort of an opportunity there. Genda Glow asks, what's your favorite new feature in Godot 4.5?
Ooh, the stencil options under materials. Being able to quickly like outline an object, or turn it into an X-ray, or just the some levels of customization that you can do with that. I've been playing around with that for the last 2 days. I'm loving it. It's like the exact thing I was looking for. Yes, I know there's a make outline button under meshes, but I'm always looking to reduce draw calls, because I'm trying to get my stuff, always running at 60 frames a second on Steam Deck. So the more I can do through shaders and materials, the better. So I'm absolutely loving the stencil option. The new form of anti-aliasing, the SMAA in there, that's very welcome. There was one other thing that I've already implemented. I can't remember, but
I love it. I just don't know what it was.
Oh, the shader baker. The shader baker. So you don't have to precompile shaders when you're on a game. Like that's worth a couple
infomercial. Shader baker. All right.
Now
so
from the makers of Godot.
Yeah, from the makers of Godot 4.5. We've got 3 minutes, and so let's do a quick fire. We got 2 questions. Gab de Jesus, I'd love for my team to switch to open source software, but it's hard to find people who have experience with open source in my country. Is this training overhead for open source going to be worth it? YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, I'd say absolutely 100%, because there is no overhead. There are so many free resources available for Blender, for Krita, for Godot, for LibreOffice, you name it. Just, yeah, time is money, but if you and the team can take the time to learn this stuff, it is going to pay off dividends in the end.
Right. Like you said, a month for GD script.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like starting over, but not starting over. Starting over. It's like new game plus 3 or whatever.
What is 1 month of education for free in something that you can then spend 2,000 hours making something incredible just
right?
from 1 month of training.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, Janek, another question. Thoughts on fighting the reality of the market where most professionals are trained in proprietary non-FOSS tools like Unity, Unreal, and Photoshop?
Well, I don't know if you can tell from the flannel, but I am quite the hipster. And I don't believe in the concept of doing something just because the mainstream tells you to do it. I think, especially in terms of game development, that's a waste of money and it's a waste of brain power. And it's like you're sacrificing creativity for the sake of security. And I can't justify that. So if, like I'm a Photoshop junkie, but I'm still using the version of Photoshop CS6 that I bought in 2012. Like I never upgraded to CC. Um, and Adobe's not getting another dime out of me these days, especially. So, if I had to change over to GIMP or Krita, I happily would. And you know, anybody who says, "Oh, I can't fund you because you're using Blender instead of Maya," I'm just like, well, why would you spend so much of your money on a Maya license when I can get the same results for free? That like, there's no answer to that.
Yeah. So there is another question, but also if you wanted to hang out in the Discord for a little bit, Danny, is that cool?
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
Over there under the category September IGB sessions, there's an AMA questions and general and introductions channel. So if you guys want to go in there, Danny will go in there for a little bit. And you guys got some questions coming in. That's awesome. But we've got another guest coming up right now. So thank you so much, Danny. Always informative. Always
Thank
like
you.
the expert in whatever you're talking about. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.